Um, Cell division and cancer are kind of the focus today. So the idea is, or the essential question is, tell me the link between mitosis and cancer. Your code is 121, so that's a level 1, 2 level 2s, and a level 3. Should be on page 42 right now, and your topic is mitosis and cancer. So we're talking about this today, and it hopefully, I know everybody has been, or I would assume everybody's had, cancer affect their life in some way or another. So I try not to go into, that level of detail with stuff. But we are going to talk about it today, so I apologize in advance if you're kind of sensitive to this for any particular reason. But we're going to talk about how mitosis relates to cancer. We're going to talk about the odds that someone you know or you or some winds up with this stuff in your lifetime, because it's pretty good that you're going to have to deal with it at some point. But that's what we're talking about today. And it all comes back to how cells divide and the way they go through this process. So as you know, mitosis, right? Takes one cell and makes an identical copy of it, so one cell turns into 2, and then those 2 cells, when they divide, they turn into 4, and then 4 into 8, and all the way through, right, into infinity, basically. And what we're going to talk about today is how your cells, recognize that they don't need to divide right now. Status quo, everything's normal, we're good to go, I don't need to divide. And then, alternatively, how they know when it's time to divide, how they know when they need to make a copy of themselves. And then the last one, the cancer side, is what happens when things go haywire and they lose the ability to stop themselves from dividing. It's kind of like a runaway train. So that's what we're focused on today. That's what we're going to do. So the idea behind it is this, the way that cells control their dividing. I think this all pops up at once. But cells control their dividing first through a process that's called contact. Sorry for the blue on black there. But it says contact inhibition. Sorry for the eye strain, but I can't even read that from here, so there's no way you guys can read that. Contact, just like contact. And then inhibition. INHIBITION. So contact inhibition is that's one way that cells recognize that they no longer need to divide. And what that means, in short, is this. That when one cell, particularly an easy example to think of is with your skin cells, when they come in contact with each other, they recognize that they're touching another skin cell and they no longer need to divide. Right? So an example would be as you cut yourself, you make a gap between your skin cells. No longer is one skin cell touching another when you've got a cut between them. And the result is the cells that have the gap between them, that are no longer touching a cell, automatically recognize, I need to divide, I need to make this happen. And they begin the division process. And they recognize as soon as they touch another cell to stop dividing. And that's what the contact means. When they contact something they know, and then inhibition means to stop or to slow down, basically. So contact between cells actually stops cyclins. Sorry again for the blue on black, I'll fix that. But cyclins, cyclins are what they're called. LINS. Nope. And these are chemicals inside the cell that are they give the cell time to do different processes, check to make sure the DNA got copied correctly, check to make sure there are no errors. But they are cells, or they are chemicals inside the cell that actually will stop the cell from dividing. And alternatively, you can get cyclins that cause it to happen. So you can take a cell that's in mitosis, and remember what the cytoplasm is? The goop inside. You can take some of that cytoplasm from one cell and put it in another cell, and as soon as you put it in there, it starts dividing because it's got that chemical in it. So if you take the chemical from one cell and put it in another cell, that cell automatically starts dividing. You can do stuff. This is an example of contact inhibition. These are cells grown in a petri dish, like a little dish, on kind of like that gelatin that we had for doing our lab. You can grow a single layer of cells on there, so it goes from just a couple cells in culture to completing, filling this thing up in culture. And once it fills up, the cells stop dividing. They go about living their life as they're supposed to live it. And then where you just scrape these off, cells in the middle grow together. The thing they're touching is gone, so they'll grow back together until they touch again, and then they kind of stop dividing. That's the way your skin heals itself. No, scabs are like blood and things like that. This is how your skin grows together behind the scab, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, the scab kind of protects these new cells from what's going on. I think it's the opposite, right? Well, you are a unique individual. Taj explaining to you earlier with cyclins. So nothing to write down on this page. But if you remember, here's a cell, and we could even say, Shayla, what stage this cell is in, right? What stage is it in? Everything's lined up in the middle. Metaphase, thank you. So it's in metaphase. So it's in the process of cell division, right? This one, if you remember, it's got the big purple nucleus, so it means it's not dividing, it's in interphase. But if you take some of the cytoplasm out of this, nothing more than the cytoplasm, put it in this, immediately this thing starts going through this process of division. And that's how they figured out there's a chemical in here that controls this. We can make that chemical, we can put it in there, we can do this thing. Because you were not paying attention? Okay. So, moving on. 2 types of cyclins that we'll talk about here. We've got, sorry for the blue on black again. It's a theme through the whole thing. Yeah, this one is called internal regulators. And internal regulators are proteins inside of the cell that stop the division from occurring until the cell's made sure like all the DNA is copied. The other internal type is called, or another cyclin like this. It's a protein that prevents anaphase from happening. If you remember, anaphase is where the chromosomes get ripped in half, like separated to opposite ends of the cells. It prevents that from happening until the cell is double checked that each centromere, the center of the chromosome, has a spindle fiber attached to it. So it's just like, these things give it time to double check stuff, to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. Right? You wouldn't want, just like making a car, if you were to make a car and it went out with only 2 tires, someone would have an issue with that. But a less serious issue with that than you would if you went out with an extra set of chromosomes or not enough chromosomes or something like that. So that's why this happens. Your body does this in order to ensure that things grow correctly. The other one that's about to pop up right here, it's also blue and black. It's the same. It just says external regulators. So the other one I'm going to put right here says external regulators. So internal means they're within the cell. External means they're coming from a different source, like these growth factors that control like healing and then the development of embryos within like the mother. Right? The mother's chemicals inside her kind of control the development of that fetus on the inside, telling it to grow more rapidly than it normally would. Or when you get injured, right? When you break a bone, if anybody's broken a bone in your nose, when you break a bone, your body begins that healing process. It does specific things to heal that bone, to send calcium there and bring that thing back together. And your body, when you're younger, is really good at fixing itself and healing itself. But as you get older, your capability to fix yourself kind of diminishes. You ever see particularly old ladies with like the hunched up back and the neck that's kind of out like this? Yeah, it happens to a lot, particularly old women, but it's called like osteoporosis. And their bones in their neck just form like little micro fractures from supporting their head. And slowly, like, their bones back there break enough that their head's like way down like this. Yep. Yeah, you'll shrink too as you get older. Your bones like slowly compact. But when you're young, that doesn't happen because your body's really good at healing itself. But as you get older and those little cracks form, and particularly in women, they don't heal and you wind up kind of doubled over like that. And then the very last one is that on the edges of all these cells that we're talking about, you've got molecules, little chemicals on the outside that either stop or slow down the division of the cells around them. So every cell in your body has a little chemical on the outside, and if it touches another cell, that's the sign to the other cell, like, hey, you're there, you don't need to divide anymore. Talks about cancer. So, and that's what that blue word is. But cancer, just definition, right, is a disorder that exists within your cell when they lose their ability to control cell division. So no longer does the the cell recognized that it shouldn't divide anymore. It divides like in an uncontrolled fashion, and that's what it says here, that they lose the ability to respond to the signs that would tell them to stop. Like touching another cell would normally tell every other cell to, hey, you don't need to divide right now. But cancer cells, once a mutation has occurred, those cells become cancerous, and then the result is they grow indefinitely. So cancer cells are unique in a way, but they are like your lung can turn into a cancer cell. So it's not like you can catch a cancer cell, or it's not like you can you have them inside of you already. It's that in your DNA, a mutation occurs. So one of those letters, A, G, T, C, or a combination of those letters changes accidentally, and as a result of that, your cell no longer has the ability to like control its division. It just divides in turbo mode basically, and the result is it takes over stuff, it grows around stuff, it grows through stuff, and begins slowly to shut those things down. Todd?
People like doing for treatment like chemotherapy and stuff like that. What does that do?
Give me a second. What's going on here?